How you doing, YouTube? I just strung this racket last night over 15 hours ago, and there's something major wrong with it. Can you guess what's wrong with this racket that made me decide to cut it out and restring it? I've always said that in high-level stringing, accuracy isn't a goal, it's a requirement. But today I hit a wall. For the first time in my stringing history, I'm cutting out a fresh set of strings before they even hit the chord. We're measuring over 5 DTs higher than the target, nearly 7 pounds over reference tension. Here's the problem: when your dynamic tension is far off, the racket isn't just stiff, but it's unplayable. So what went wrong? Is it my machine, the pull speed? Is it a particular type of string that I used? The racket's pattern or construction itself? What's wrong with it? So today we're diagnosing the overtension mystery and restringing this from scratch to find out perfect accuracy. So let's get in the data. So he's using the head velocity in the 16 gauge. I last strung his racket a few months back, maybe 8 months to a year ago. I threw away his last label already. It was strung at 54 pounds with the velocity 16 gauge string at 54 reference. And at the time, I did not own an ERT 300, so I couldn't tell you what the DT measurement was in order to compare to it. So we can't compare to his old data. However, this time with the new string, he wanted to try it at a lower tension of 52 reference. That's why we had it strung at 52, as the label says, last night. As I was, before I started stringing it, I realized that it's an 18 by 20 pattern. It's a closed pattern. Now in the past, I've known and understood that in closed pattern rackets, the resulting string bed stiffness is going to play stiff because the ball pocketing is going to be less. It's going to make it less comfortable, and therefore I would normally recommend my customers to lower his reference tension versus the normal 16 by 19 open pattern racket. So that should have raised flag on my string method. However, I decided to just be consistent and string it the way that I normally do with all my rackets. And I'll show you my Excel sheet where I track the dynamic tension of most of my string jobs from the last couple months. And as you can see, there's something special about certain strings, like for example stiff polys, and also multifilament strings, such as in the case of this head velocity. And I will go over my data and prove my point. And also I'll show you the measurements like within a half an hour after it's been strung last night.
This 42 DTs is a whopping 60 pounds, guys.
The tension will drop within the next day or two. Now I would like to return this racket back to the customer right away. Normally my turnaround time is within a day or the next day, so I can't hold on to for that long. So I was hoping that by this morning the tension would have dropped by a couple of DTs like it would with polys, which I strung the most. And that's not been the case. I've even gone as far as stepping on the racket itself to try to get a lower DT rating, and that didn't do it. So he requested 52 pounds. Now 52 pounds on an ERT reference card corresponds to 36 DT. And last night I was getting 42 DT, and by just moving it like up or down one string, one cross string, I was able to get it down to like 41 DT. But 41 DT corresponds to 59 pounds. It's 41 that corresponds to 59 pounds, and the initial 42 correspond to 60 pounds. All right, so you're talking about over 7 pounds of discrepancy, right? Now, normally from my spreadsheet, as you can see, that the numbers marked in green means that the converted tension in pounds matches the reference tension by up or down 1 pound's difference. So that to me is perfectly acceptable given the limit of detection. With the ERT, obviously less than 1 DT amount of difference is where they're not confident or they're not certain enough in order to give us a representation of what that is, meaning how about 40.5 DT? There's limitations. As you can see, 41 DT was 59 pounds, and 40 DT represents 57 pounds, and 41 DT represents 59 pounds. So it skips 48 pounds. You know what I mean? What happens? You're trying to target a reference tension of 58 pounds. You will not get it. You can only get 40 or 41 DT to show up on the ERT. So that's the limitation there. It's not a 100% precise or even accurate measurement, but it's what the highest level of stringers go by right now. So I'm not complaining. It's a tool. Every tool has its limitations. So anyways, this is what it takes for me to learn a lesson on this. I didn't have an ERT the last time that this racket was strong, so maybe it was over tensioned on a DT back then as well, but I have no way to tell. But this time, I should also mention that during this time I've changed my string methods as well. As you can see from my previous videos, I've turned on by default 10% pre-stretch for all my rackets. Most recently, I've decided to make the first pull main opposite of the anchor clamp. Pretty much the first pull, I jacked that up by 2.5 pounds. I'm thinking perhaps when I go to restring this, I'm gonna cut this out, unfortunately, and I'll show you why. But just to finish this point, that when I do restring this racket, either today or next time, I'm going to go back to I'm going to keep the 10% pre-stretch, but I'm not going to do a manual pre-stretch with the velocity string around my basement pole. That's how I do my manual pre-stretch for all the soft strings like multifilament, syn guts, and natural guts. So when I do restring this, I'm not going to do that. And also I'm not going to pull that first string by 2.5 pounds more, because this is already a dense pattern racket. It was already my understanding that this close pattern is going to yield a much higher string bed stiffness, but I didn't make any changes right away. But the lesson that I learned right now is that for these close patterns and these particular type strings, that I will have to make changes if I want my result string bed stiffness to come anywhere close to what it's supposed to be. So it's been over 15 hours. Let's see what it's measuring now. I've got it mounted to so you can see where it's mounted. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's mounted across 10, 11, and 12 cross string. Hopefully you can see. All right, let's do a measurement. I'm holding it level, keeping my hand away from this middle of the throat area. Okay, I'm getting 41. So I think it did drop because just a couple of hours ago when I first woke up, let's try it again at the same position. I mean, when I first woke up, I think I got 42 if I remember correctly. Okay, 41. Okay, 41 is better than 42. So let me just lower it by one cross string. It is now mounted between 9, 10th, and 11. All right, I just moved it rightwards by one cross string. Let's do a measurement. 39. So that's 2 DTs lower. 39, that's 56 lb, right? 39 is 56 lb. That's still 4 pounds higher than what he asked for. Oh, this time I got 40. So between 39 and 40 pounds, 40 DT is 57 pounds. That's 5 pounds higher than what he asked for. So normally I would have given the racket back to the player already. They may have a match today, or they may be waiting for me in the driveway. I know it sounds a little bit extreme, but currently, yeah, I have quite a few customers who would wait in the driveway for their racket because they need to use it like the same day or the next day. So I would hate to return a racket to the customer having been strung like 5 to 7 pounds or over 7 pounds higher than what he had asked for. I mean, if it was 2 to 3 DT or pounds over, so be it. I know that within the next couple of days, usually in case of the polys, within the next day, within the next half of a day, it'll drop by 2 DT. You know, it'll drop that much. But obviously with the soft multifilament strings, the drop is much slower. As you can see that I just demonstrated, it took it over 15 hours to drop 1 or 2 DT, but I think it's beginning to drop, and eventually it'll peter out. I don't know, maybe after the next day or two, or 2 to 3 days, or the next few days. I'm not sure, but as you can see from my spreadsheet, that this velocity multifilament string has very good tension maintenance. Right, stiffness is at 164, tension maintenance is 17%, versus your most common polys that are in the around the mid 20s tension percentage drops. That's considered very good tension maintenance. Take, for example, your RPM blast, 1.25 millimeter RPM blast. That tension drop percentage is 33. So that's worse than your Solinco, some of your best Solinco strings. I mean, even the Torbite made by Solinco, that's 1.3 millimeter. As you can see, that tension drop percentage is 47%. All right, compared to this velocity string at 17%, that's literally like, I don't know, 2 to 3 times, at least 2 to 3 times higher rate of drop.
Mention that when the final tension is within plus minus 1 pound of the reference tension, I highlight the result in green. And when it's higher by more than a couple of pounds, I highlight it in yellow. And on the opposite end, if it's lower by more than 2 pounds, I highlight it in red.
So that's the difference with the multifilament strings. So I'm going to cut this out and restring it. And the plan is to, number one, don't pull the first string by 2.5 pounds more. Number two, don't do the manual pre-stretch. I mean, I could suggest the customer lower the gauge of the velocity string. I do have it in a 17 gauge, and that should open up his string bed some more. But being the fact that he's used to using this gauge, so I'm not gonna suggest it to him. Avoid any complications. And perhaps for this restring, I'll try to clamp up somewhat more loosely, leaving more like clamp it at a distance further away from the frame. And then we'll come back and remeasure what the new DT is. As you can see, recently I've had quite a few instances with the velocity strings measuring high. So it started here. Okay, after I started over pulling the first string by more than 2 pounds, this string job came out 2 pounds higher than the 55 reference tension. It came out 57. I did not restring that because even though it's not 100% passing, I just note it. I make my notes saying that soft strings do measure higher tension. It's also a 110 square inch string bed. My rule of thumb with oversized rackets is that I should string it at a higher tension because there's more room in between the strings. Balls are gonna, the string bed is gonna feel less stiff. So as you can see, it came out higher, but it wasn't like 5 pounds higher. It was just 2 pounds higher. And this 100 square inch racket, regular string pattern, 16 by 19, that also came out 2 pounds higher. So it's not the best, but I just took note and say that, well, I did note here saying brand new racket, so I pulled kind of loose, knowing multis get higher dynamic tension. Oh, I remember this racket. Yeah, I remember with this 51 reference, I could have pulled it at, 50 reference, I could have pulled everything at 51, considering that it's a brand new racket, but it was some kind of a ring called the Arthur Ashe competition something. It was based on head bloom. So had I added the 1 extra pounds, considering the grommets are all kind of new, this number may be 53 pounds, 3 pounds higher. So you're starting to see a trend. I started to see a trend with these velocity streams being consistently a couple of pounds high with my current method of stringing. And that leads us to this latest one with the 18 by 20 string pattern, strung at 52, and I got 59 based on the 41 DT reading that I got, depending on which strings that these hooks are hooked onto. Initially, I got 42 DT right off the stringer. So without going on and on about the shenanigans, let me just cut it out and restring this bad boy. Stay tuned. It's a bit of a waste to cut out these brand new unused strings, but hey, it's the price you pay for a good lesson, right? In order to rule out that it's a issue with my calibration, no, it shouldn't be, because of the fact that when I string for polys, I don't run into this overtension by more than a pound or two. So let's check. All right, let's pull this at 52 pounds, where I had it set at last night with 10% pre-stretch. Speed is 3, which doesn't really do anything on this machine. I'll wrap it the same way that I wrap, just like during normal stringing. I'm gonna tear it to 0 first and pull. It's pulling 52.5, 52.57. So just over half a pound higher, which is more than acceptable. I'd rather have a high than have a low. .57, so it's consistent. about 52.6. See that? So it's not a calibration issue. Let's move on to restring this racket. So instead of showing the whole thing and boring you to death about restringing it, I would just mention where I'm changing my methods in order to get it closer to my reference tension. I will cut the rest of the sections out. Okay, the racket has 8 grommet holes in the throat, therefore going from the top, just the usual stuff. Okay, this is where last night, how I pulled it last night is I would instead of pulling it at 52, I would
Pull it at 54.5 pounds.
because we're having the high tension problem, I'm going to not do that. Just pull everything at 52. And by the way, I did not pre-stretch this fresh cut section of the string. It's brand new right from the reel. Right here, I'm leaving more room, more distance away from the frame. That should lower the tension a little bit. Here's another difference I'm making. Is with this anchor string over here. I'm going back to my previous way of clamping, which is by leaving about an inch away from the billiard post. So 1.25 inches away, 1.75 inches away from the edge of the frame. That is in effort to lower the tension on this string so that it'll match in sound pitch to the opposite string. I've been doing it that way for a long time before I started upping the tension on the first pull by like 2 to 2.5 pounds. That's shown in all my previous videos. But because I'm running into this issue with this 18x20 racket with this velocity string of getting extremely higher tension than the reference tension by 7 pounds, oops, I've decided to go back to my old way so I can get a lower resulting tension. Now, is it gonna be 7 pounds lower? We'll wait and see. And I think, yeah, these are the only differences I'm making, in addition to not manually pre-stretch this string as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a problem. This just came off the stringer, and I thought, and results after the second restring. It is disappointing. To keep it level until the result comes out. You see that? A whopping 43. You see that? This is with it clipped onto strings number 9, 10, and 11, I think. Yeah, 9, 10, and 11. So let me move it up one more. Clamped onto 10, 11, and 12. Still in the middle of the string bed, as you can see. Well, this time it's consistent, 43. So what the heck is the dilemma, guys? Why is my string bed stiffness coming out extra high? Or is there's something wrong with the ERT 300, or is the 18 by 20 string pattern the overriding setup with such high string bed stiffness? I mean, 43, that amounts to 62 pounds. So the guy asked for 52 pounds, and ERT 300 is telling me that it's 62 pounds. So what the heck is going on? All right, I'm seriously asking a question. So, I mean, should I drop my reference tension instead of doing it at 52? Should I drop it 5 pounds and string it at 47 instead for this? It's really ridiculous. I'm not going to string it a third time to tell you that. I already wasted a perfectly good set of strings. I'm out $10. So I'm just gonna jot it down that this thing is coming out 10 pounds higher. I mean, I'm sure over time, over the course of however many weeks, it's gonna drop down to his reference tension and as he uses it. But right off the stringer, it's gonna be stiff as heck. It's gonna be 10 pounds higher, and I don't know why it's doing that, other than the overriding factor of this string pattern, and with it being 98 square inch. I've changed my methods to try and lower the tension, and that didn't do div watts. Maybe I should have turned off the 10% pre-stretch. No? Yeah, I'll add that to the next thing I do for next time. But if you got any other suggestions or recommendations, feel free to share them below. I thought I was going to show, informational video showing my experiences and how I go about addressing a problem, but in the end it turned out that the problem did not get resolved, my dynamic tension ended up being higher. So I could leave the racket sit until tonight and measure it again and see if I get something lower, but then that defeats the purpose of measuring it right off the stringer. So I don't know what to say. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very much for watching, and I'm just gonna not lose sleep over it. Gonna note this is what happened in case this racket or this customer decides to come back next time, if he doesn't get mad with this such a high racket stiffness. For all I know, maybe the previous time, 8 months ago, when I strung it at 54 pounds, it was coming out at 64 pounds for all I know. I didn't have an ERT back then to go by, so I couldn't say for now. I could put this racket on the floor right now and step on it for like 10-20 minutes or something to try and lower it by a couple pounds. I could do that, it's an option, but I don't want to step on his brand new strings. Right now, I did it with the last set, but yeah, I'm not gonna waste any more time with it. Don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna even put this video out, but I might, just for kicks. I might get some feedbacks from some of you all experienced stringers out there, or I might get criticized by some viewers. Either way, we'll find out.
Guess what, guys? I got the Google AI to the rescue. I asked it the question, how come this liquid metal radical liquid metal 18x20 got me such high resultant tension compared reference? And this is what it showed me. It pretty much confirmed suspicions, especially after this exercise. It then explained the reasons and recommended that perhaps that I string 2 to 5 pounds lower next time. Then also asked me what was my reference tension, and I told it was 52 pounds with 10% pre-stretch, and it told me to perhaps do away without the pre-stretch next time. Now that'll be a pretty big change from what I'm used to. I'm used to always pre-stretching the soft strings, multifilaments, gut, natural gut, and zinc guts. So perhaps for particular multifilaments, I'll stop doing a pre-stretch from now on, especially on these 18x20 patterns. So to recap, it told me to skip the pre-stretch and to lower the reference tension by 4 to 5 pounds. And lastly, to switch to 17 gauge. Wow.
Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy. Peace out.